Hey, everybody, it's Brian Burns, and welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, today we have Jason Hubbard on. He has just left a 5-year stint at a SaaS startup that he grew quite fast, a real success story, and now he's out on his own. He's got his own agency now, and he's working with small SaaS B2B companies trying to get their growth strategy put in place. So it's a lot more than just marketing. It's really putting the marketing and sales and customer success pieces all together. I think this is a great agency model. We're going to get into it. But before we do, I don't want to make sure that you're aware that I am giving away my book, How Large Companies Make Product Selections. This is both for marketing and for sales, so you can understand internally what it takes for a company to make a product selection. How do they do it? What is the administrative, political, structural, emotional ways that the companies actually make those selections, and how does it affect us as vendors? And you get this for free. It's about a 40-page book. It's no graphics or anything. All you have to do is go to B, so B, the numeral 2B, revenue.com, and just register. Just put your email in there, submit. So in other words, subscribe. You will get a confirmation email with a pretty little envelope in it, an image of an envelope. And at the bottom right-hand corner will be download the book. And the book, that's a link to where the book is on Box, and it'll just open up as a PDF file. So free of charge, just take that and enjoy it. I basically had it on Amazon for several years, updated it a couple times, and I decided just to give it away as a way of connecting up with you to kind of demonstrate both my knowledge and the intricacies of what we're up against. Because, talking about it is one thing. Some people like to read about it, and nobody else has really written about this stuff. And that here you get it for free. Also, want to make sure you're checking out Prezi Business. They're doing some great work out there. They've got some great blog posts, great ebooks, free downloads. Give it a try. Take a look at it. A great way to tell your story and see what people are doing with it. Also, Jason's going to share a little bit about what he's been doing with DialSource. DialSource has been a partner. We had the CEO on a couple weeks ago. Great story about how to really get your phone system to work with your CRM so that reps on both marketing, sales, and support are on the phone talking to real people instead of dialing and trying to find information and entering into the CRM. Let's get into the interview, and I'll sum it up at the end. Hey, Jason, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
My name's Jason Hubbard. I'm a CEO of Your Growth Expert. Spent the last 5 years as VP of marketing for a company called Cirrus Insight. It's a B2B SaaS company that makes apps that integrate Salesforce with the inbox. And saw an opportunity where typically in the SaaS space, kind of the last thing that people figure out is marketing and growth. So our sweet spot is typically a B2B SaaS company that's raised a Series A. They've got some of their ducks in a row, but they need to figure out how to put things together to really accelerate growth. And marketing is a big piece of that, but also just growth strategy. So I broke off on my own and bought on my old team that I had at Cirrus, and been at it for a little over a year now.
Cool. Was it a little scary at first, or?
Oh, it was terrifying.
At least you're honest.
No, Knoxville's not a bastion for tech startups. So this was built out of necessity more than anything. And yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, anybody that's been an entrepreneur and has to pay the bills will tell you it's terrifying at times.
Yeah, especially when you're in a services business where a lot of it's relationships and it's hard to tell one company from another. and especially in the marketing space where there's so many alternatives and everything's pretty hard to determine what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean a big one for me was needing to get my team back together because we offer a full suite of marketing services. So I needed my design person, I needed my website person. As I frequently tell people, you don't want me doing design for you. You definitely don't want me doing HTML coding for you. So yeah, to be able to offer that kind of full suite of services, getting the team back together was definitely a high priority.
And how would you define your expertise as far as like how are you different than a lot of the agencies out there?
Yeah, so we do some of the typical agency marketing work of designing assets or building websites, stuff like that. But really, where we come at it from is an entire holistic growth approach. So we'll attack the funnel from the very top, lead generation, nurturing, all the way to identifying a marketing sales qualified lead, building out the sales processes. So we're experts in marketing automation and CRM, particularly Salesforce. So we can do a lot of really nifty tricks. Like for instance, with one of our clients, we've got things wired to where as a new lead comes in to the system, it gets an immediate screen pop for the sales team, and so instead of the typical 5 minute interval that you want to try and get in front of them. Oftentimes they're getting in front of them and calling people within like 30 seconds. So like they're still on the website having just filled out the form. And it happens to be that's using a piece of their own technology. So they're a dialing platform. And so they've closed a lot of deals just with people being like, how in the world did you do that fast? We want to do that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we can, we're very sophisticated in the things that we can build out. We're definitely also, very much metrics oriented. We report constantly on, what we're doing, what we're achieving. Work very closely to make sure that, we're advancing the ball on all fronts.
And what are you seeing working today? I mean, because the marketing has kind of shifted a lot, certainly in the last 5 years, where it was everything was content. Everybody wanted ebooks and blogs and, YouTube channels and all of that. And today, I think people are still doing that, but I don't know how effective that is. What's your
Honestly, it's funny that you say that because what I've seen is a lot of back to basics. So it's a lot of back to marketing 101. So like for instance, webinars were a big initiative for us with our clients last year, and we did well with those. I mean, we were getting 100 plus registrations for it. One thing that I did see was the registration to attendance ratio dropped dramatically. So it used to be that a general rule of thumb would be 50% of your registrants would actually show up. That's dropped down to 20 to 30%. And I think a lot of it's the stuff that I started doing proactively years ago. Which was recording the webinars and then sharing out a recording of the webinar along with the deck afterwards. And so I think a lot of people, even though they're interested in the webinar, have taken the attitude of, I'm just going to sign up for it. I know that standard practice now is that I'm going to get the recording of the webinar, and so then I can get back to it on my own time. But registrations for webinars across all of my client base have fallen precipitously this year. And I think, N of one, but if I'm any indication of it, it looks like everybody decided that they wanted to do a really aggressive webinar campaign this year. And I'm getting like, 6 to 12 webinar invites a day, literally. And so, yeah, I think the channels just become saturated. And even down to the point where I see that my webinar invite emails get half the open rate that my content emails get. So yeah, like I said, funny that you say that, but it sort of seems back to basics as far as content is king again.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I think the quantity or the quality needs to be the key thing. A lot of people talk about quantity, but, I don't know how about you, but how many listicles can you read and you're like, oh, let me see who wrote this. And it was a journalist or a paid for hire person who interviewed somebody, and you're like, yeah. It's just
no, it's quality is definitely key with that. So it's not just I mean, when we tell our writers is it should be 10 times better than your average content.
Yeah.
It needs to be well researched. It needs to have multiple links out to additional resources. Things like video interviews, podcasts, things like that, where it's premium content, and then in particular stuff around, like being able to have case studies. And again, pointing to those actual real statistics. Stats are extremely important. And then, ebooks, infographics, stuff like that. But yeah, just putting out your standard, blog post of, top 10 things,
right.
Is definitely not going to get you very far.
That's it. Everyone's done it, or the kind of the share bait where you put everybody's name into something, hoping that they will share it. But I don't think that it may work, but I don't think people believe it anymore. The top 5,000 experts of this or that. For me,
but go ahead.
Podcasting has been, certainly, because I tried YouTube at first, and I got some traction. And then I tried blogging, got nothing on the sales side. Especially since LinkedIn kind of, they still support Pulse, but they don't share Pulse the way they used to. And I can't understand why they moved away from that model. It was working so well for them.
Yeah, one that we just recently started doing just this year has been Medium, and one of the things I really like about Medium is the insight that they give to you about engagement.
Yeah,
and that one's been a good platform for us so far.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think Medium kind of took off right at that time, and maybe LinkedIn just abandoned that approach, and now they're trying to do something with video or text questioning and stuff. But, no one's going to invest the time to, really put into a Pulse that doesn't get shared to their user base. It just, gets on the stream once and then it's gone,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I will definitely say that marketing has become much more difficult over the last couple of years. Obviously email saturated, webinars got saturated. And so, yeah, like I said, it's sort of back to basics as far as like creating really, really good, solid content that people are going to engage with, and get that out there. But yeah, I mean, all of the channels that people were using, whether it be social, whether it be email, whether it be, and then this is the way marketing goes. Somebody finds a channel that it's effective, and then everybody else rinses and repeats it. It's the reason why I hate the term growth hacking, because growth hacking is that inevitable, cycle. Of you find something that's a hack, and everybody else finds it, and then it dies.
Then it's not a hack anymore.
And so kind of back to your question, what we do differently is, we are metrics driven. We're constantly testing. We're constantly throwing stuff at the wall. We're looking at what's working, what's not, what's optimizing. And so it's not just relying on one single thing. It's constantly trying to innovate and be out ahead.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that brings up a funny story because it was a LinkedIn Pulse post about how they figured out some trick on LinkedIn. But of course, once the Pulse came out, everyone started doing it, and their business got cut into 90% of their business went away because LinkedIn shut down the tool that they were using to hack.
Well, yeah, we did a similar one whenever YouTube videos, video ads very first started coming out.
Yeah.
I discovered that if I moved my budget by $1, then the algorithm would go haywire and it would basically do unlimited ads. But then AdWords policy was, you can't ever be charged more than what your budget was. And so, yeah, we would do that. We would literally crash our website. And then, and it took Google about 30 days to figure that one out. But yeah, I mean, that's the problem with hacks. They don't work for very long.
No, and I pushes anybody in marketing to kind of be a scientist and an artist at the same time, trying to find these little loopholes or ways that will last for a certain amount of time, and finding out where is your target audience, what do they care about, how do they want to learn about new capabilities. And how do they not want to learn about them?
Yeah, and again, like it's back to quality content. It's finding the things that people are going to engage with, and you've got on the flip side of it, you've got a lot of really really good tools out now that we didn't have before. Like we started using CMOS heavily, for instance, for SEO. And again, SEO is a back to basics, but it's a solid tool for being able to figure out, like, hey, what are the problems on your pages? What are the technical things you need to fix? What are keywords that you need to be tracking? How well are you ranking? And while SEO has gotten harder, there's actually better tools for it as well.
And what's your feeling about paid advertisement?
Mixed.
Because that's changed a lot too.
Yeah. So paid for most of my clients. So I'm a strong believer in retargeting. If they made it to your website, then stay front and center. And that's a definite. You definitely need to be doing retargeting. Paid, like as far as display or PPC in the B2B SaaS space, I've had a really hard time with it. Yeah. I think it lends itself much better to consumer. Or at least where they've got a clear buying intention. SaaS tends to take a lot of education and nurturing, and people tend to do a lot of shopping around, and so because of that, I've not had a whole lot of success with PPC and B2B SaaS.
Yeah, it is hard, but I think people started to see last year, I think, was the panacea about Facebook ads. But I'm like, well, you realize you're advertising your content, so that's right. That's what they want. And the key to it is, at least in B2B SaaS, you need to be aware of where they are in the funnel. So if you're doing PPC, if you're doing display, then you need to make sure that your call to action and what you're trying to get them to act on is value-added content. Trying to get somebody to go from a PPC ad to a free trial as a single step Yeah, no,
it just didn't going to work.
right. That education phase, because most of this stuff is so new, it solves a problem that people didn't even think they either had or was even solvable,
Yeah.
and that takes a huge leap. And very few marketers figure that out, and certainly very few salespeople figure that out. You know.
Yeah, and it's become increasingly important that you're savvy about where people are in the funnel, and that you've got a clearly defined process for, okay, they're at this stage. This is what we need to do to move them to the next stage. And yeah, that's, again, it's back to basics, but it's become increasingly important to really be savvy about how you're doing your marketing. We had so many different channels and technologies that came on the scene over the last 5 to 10 years, that I think a lot of marketers got lazy, and stopped actually trying to figure out how do you do this systematically. And I think those days are largely over.
Yeah, I think they was still focused on that checkbox. Okay, what's the website look like? Okay, now I got to have marketing automation. Now I got to have a blog. Now I got to have an ebook. Now we got to do a webinar once a quarter. No, and then we got to go to the trade show. And I don't think that method really works very well. I think you have to be much more smarter about who cares about this, where are they, how do we communicate with them, and get them engaged.
Yeah, and it takes a multi-levels process. I mean, it's easy to go out and spin up a marketing automation platform. It's easy to go out and buy a list of 100,000 people to email to. Unfortunately, Google's gotten really, really tight on their spam filters. In fact, I actually discovered a flaw in their spam filter last year where they were shutting out every email that Pardot was sending. And by some miracle, I got somebody on support that listened to me.
Yeah.
And they elevated it, and they were like, "Yep, sure enough, we had an error in the spam algorithm." But yeah, I mean, all of the things that were shortcuts and easy that people used to be able to do and rely on and get results with, you now have to get a lot more sophisticated. I mean, for me, one of the biggest keys has been, having multi-layers as far as identification of where they are in the funnel, how engaged are they, using multi-channel to reach out to them. So, having, at least in B2B SaaS, having an SDR team has become virtually essential, to bridge that gap between marketing and sales. Because it's been really, really hard to get somebody from, marketing qualified to sales qualified without that human element to actually reach out and bridge that gap.
Oh, definitely. And what's your feeling about who they should report to? Or is there really a need for kind of an SDR team within marketing and in sales?
Yeah, it definitely needs to be a hybrid.
Yeah.
Because they are bridging that gap.
Yeah.
And as far as, I'm concerned, and, anytime that I onboard a new SDR, I tell them, like, you guys talk to me. The more feedback you give me, the better I can design the machine. Because they're the ones that are on the receiving end of all of the automation that's being built. And so, I mean, you as a marketer, you can build it as best as you can come up with, but you need that real-time feedback. And so, you definitely need to be part of, and for any of my clients, I insist upon being part of those SDR sales meetings.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking that as far as building great content, the best sources are potential customers, existing customers, and people who really understand the market. And
Yeah. Well, on top of that, they're the ones that are going to give you feedback on where you're connecting and where you're not as well.
Yeah. And that's a labor intensive process. That's not.
Yeah, I mean, you can you can have tools that give you indications, but the people actually having the conversations with the customers are the ones that are going to be able to tell you, like, is this content connecting? Are these the right people for us to be going after? Especially if you're like an early stage startup. I mean, there's so much discovery going on.
Yeah. And give me an idea of what's your engagement process. Let's say you find a new account. What do you do? What's the first 30 days look like?
Chaos.
You're like, holy shit, yeah.
No, I have a punch list. So I learned early on if a client's basically not willing to give us the keys to the kingdom, then it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I need all the way down to back in CMS access, DNS access. Being admin for their CRM, admin for the marketing automation platform. I mean, we basically need to be able to take the company out. I mean, there's literally nothing that's crucial to it that we don't really need access to. And the reason for that is I discovered the hard way. If we're not giving that level of trust and access, then it takes forever for us to get anything done or get anything accomplished. And so then you're going through gatekeepers, and I mean, for the most part, we're brought in to try and turn the battleship, and that's not going to happen if we're having to go through those types of processes.
So you're looking to give a lot more than just advice. You're looking to do the execution of it.
Oh yeah, no, I vastly prefer to do the execution. I can move so much faster and be so much more effective actually doing the execution than if I have to ask somebody to try and do it.
Yeah. And what mistakes do you think most CMOs are making that trying to go from that 2 million to 10 million stage?
Yeah, that's a hard stage to go from.
Yeah.
It's you've got to figure out how to scale. You've got to do a lot of the things that I'm talking about. I mean, it's the stuff that I had to learn the hard way of being systematic about it, being scientific about it, tracking everything. Rapid iteration, rapid testing. So I actually went through a course called Reforge with Brian Belfour and Andrew Chen. So Brian was from HubSpot, and it was a very illuminating experience because it was somebody that I actually sat down and systematized and written out all of the stuff that I had figured out the hard way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what you've got to get good at, and you've got to get good at doing the entire funnel. So, I mean, the single biggest problem that I see with CMOs is when they're compartmentalized. So, marketing has its metric, which may be lead generation, or it may be traffic to the website or whatever. But it's not entire funnel. And so that's one of the things that we really specialize in is, doing it from start to finish. So, lead generation, making sure that those leads are the right leads, that they're converting well, that sales is supported, that they have a sales process. I mean, all the way down to product. So, I mean, I've got one client that I just took on right now that their primary problem was product onboarding. So they had a 5% conversion rate from trial to paid. And it took me about an hour of going through the process. And it was like, all right, well, here's all the things. I came into the first meeting with an entire page of bullet list. here are all the things that we need to fix. And that's not something that typically you would think of as a marketing role.
At all.
But I think that it has to be.
Well, it's sounding like the CRO type role, right? Owning revenue from marketing, sales, customer success.
Yeah, and it's what out of Silicon Valley, they're instead of growth hacking, they're calling it growth. And it spans all of the departments. So it goes, all the way from marketing to sales to support to success, to product. And it's, again, that's the key to I think getting over that point and getting, up above $10 million,
Right.
is having, somebody. And, there's been different strategies. I mean, it's extremely early in even its inception, or, what people are talking about. And, some people put that under marketing. Some people have a dedicated growth department. Some people go the route of just having a growth person that, coordinates across all the different departments. But it is definitely cross-departmental.
Cool. Hey, Jason, this has been a great conversation. Where do people go to learn more about you and your company?
You can go to yourgrowthexpert.com.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that. Hey, also, you can check out, I've got 2 courses that are free. One on LinkedIn profiles, where I show you the basics of a LinkedIn profile to make it look professional, and how to get around some of the bugs with LinkedIn that typically make the profile look unprofessional. You can find that at b2b.revenue, and just click on training, and there'll be a link there. It'll go to all the training classes that are available. The one on LinkedIn is completely free. The Nudge one, there is a coupon you can use to get it for free. It's typically $250, but for this week only, giving it away for free, just with the coupon Nudge. Just type in the word Nudge. When you check out, make sure the balance is 0. There's no refunds, so you're responsible for making sure the coupon works in there. If it doesn't work, tell me, but don't go paying $250 for it. The coupon will clear out the amount. Also, the ebook on how companies make product selections. This is really, it's kind of targeted more at sales, but marketing people, I think, will get a lot out of it once they understand that all the players that are involved, the personas, and what really matters. A lot of people are writing about things around this right now. With discoverorg.com is doing a lot of blogging work on that. We're going to have them on the show talking about people who are in market and how to prioritize your prospects. How do you get clean data? How do you get access to them fast? Also, Gong's talking about the quality of conversations. What's the difference between a great sales conversation and a mediocre sales conversation? And what's really good is that we're moving away from the quantity KPIs and into the quality KPIs. We're going to be talking about that quite a bit on this show on both the marketing and sales side. So stay tuned for that. Really appreciate everybody listening. Please tell somebody today about the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Connect up with me on LinkedIn, and I'd really appreciate you liking, sharing, or commenting on some of my posts or activity on LinkedIn. I appreciate that, as well as posting a review for the podcast. Just tell a friend. Isn't that nice of you? Thanks for listening.